Well, a very good afternoon to you, wherever you might be listening to this Coaching Cafe around Australia, if you're listening to it live, and internationally as well. Or hello to you if you're listening to the Coaching Cafe via your favourite streaming service. My name is Natalie Ashdown from the Open Door Coaching Group, and I'm joined by our resident HR specialist, Paula Jones-Hunt. Hello, Paula. How are you today?
I am well, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Well, today in our Coaching Cafe, I have asked you to come along, Paula, as a resident HR specialist, but also as our person who's been trained in mental health first aid, and you're delivering our mental health first aid programs. Because today we would like to talk about that topic around mental health conversations. And we noticed over the last couple of workshops, we've had people say, I'm not sure whether it's my role. So we thought this might be a good conversation to take into our Coaching Cafe today. But before we begin, let me acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians of the lands on which we're all meeting today, or perhaps where you might be listening to this on your favourite streaming service. And we acknowledge their continuing connection to the land, the waters, the communities of Australia, and also our international communities. We pay our respects to them until their elders, past, present, and emerging, and anyone that might be from an Aboriginal or Indigenous descent from an international community that you're actually joining us with. So, Paula, for today, you have been delivering a lot of mental health in the workplace, mental health conversations in the workplace lately, and you were sharing with me that it's worthy, very worthy of a conversation. So, and particularly this idea about, is it my role? Should I be getting involved? And so today I thought we would take the time just to consider our roles as leaders and managers and coaches in this space, and then how we might also have the conversation. For those of you that are new to the Coaching Cafe, welcome. We come together at this time, or you might be listening on your favourite streaming service. We're all about creating community, sharing thought-provoking conversations that come out of the coaching that we're doing along the line. And if you are interested in your ICF CCUs, yes, we do offer those for free at the end of each session if you're listening to this live. Just hold on to the line at the end and you can take a screenshot at the end. So I know we also have many experienced people who have done mental health first aid training with Open Door as well. So we really do encourage your comments and your thoughts. You can interact with us via the chat box. Please put your questions and your thoughts and your comments into the chat box there as we go along. But before we begin, we want to acknowledge that we will be speaking about mental health in the workplace today. People on the line, you may have a lived experience with mental health, or you might be looking after someone who is experiencing mental health problems as well. Some participants might find talking about mental health first aid or mental health in the workplace it's a bit confronting, or it might cause a bit of stress. So if you or someone you know needs support, you can reach out to organisations such as Lifeline or Beyond Blue. And we do have the numbers there up on the screen, but Lifeline you can connect with as on 131114 or Beyond Blue on 1300 224 636. So look after yourselves as we have these conversations as well. Paula, I want to throw to you now. We always go back to, you have done a lot of mental health first aid training. We like to always go back to the World Health Organization's definition of mental health. So would you mind sharing us, and I have got the definition up here on the slides, but would you mind talking to us a bit about how the World Health Organization defines mental health?
Yeah, so it defines mental health as a state of well-being in which the individual realises their own ability, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. So what it's saying is that to be in good mental health, there are ups and downs and things will happen, but for the most part, you are able to cope with the normal stresses of life. You're able to make a contribution with your family, with the community at large, and can work productively and be a contributing member at work as well.
Yeah, so as you've mentioned, there are three elements there, and we'll start to talk about those a little bit more, Paula, because it gives us an indicator actually if those three elements aren't in place when we might be concerned. So let's talk about that in a moment. But you also shared with me why the focus was so important, and I'm putting some statistics up here, not just for Australia, but also we do a lot of work across our neighbouring countries as well. So we're not alone in Australia with increased prevalence of mental health issues generally in the community, also in the workplace. But when you see these numbers, Paula, what are you thinking about in terms of our broader neighbours as well?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where the better we get at looking at identifying mental health and people getting support for mental health, these stats will actually move as well, because we can only report on what's being reported. And I imagine there's a lot of mental health issues that are not being reported in Australia and worldwide as well. I also think COVID has had an impact, and it obviously had an impact whilst we were in lockdowns and it was restricting our way of life. But I think there's a bit more to come that will come out of COVID, where people missed out on things, or the experience they had of something. So if you think about our year 11, 12 students who at the time missed out on the whole year 11, 12 experience because they were doing it differently, what impact that might have in a few years' time on what that means from a university perspective. So I think it's the importance has never been more important, and the more we can talk about it, and the more people report and seek help for their issues, the more we'll be able to find out about exactly what those statistics are. But if we look at it, and mental health first aid statistics are that 1 in 5 people in their lifetime will experience mental health concerns. So you're going to know someone, there'll be someone in your circle, or it may in fact be you. And I think the really important thing for people to note is that the sooner you seek help, the sooner your healing journey starts. So by identifying these things earlier, it actually helps.
Yes, indeed. And I think that you talked about a number of things there, Paula, and I think that the focus was there prior to COVID. I think COVID and the experiences that everybody had might have definitely heightened the mental health conversations. But I think what we're thinking about is it's important to continue the mental health conversations, not just, well, COVID's finished, let's get on with it. The focus has always been important and continues to be important, and continuing to reduce the stigma around mental health problems and issues in the workplace really, I think, is where the main game is now as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Paula, you've talked about those three indicators, and yes, and everyone, feel free to jump in and into the chat box if you like. But you've talked about those three indicators of when we might be concerned about someone in the workplace. I'll put them up here. Would you mind sharing with us your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so and I have always talked about in the workplace that the better a manager knows their staff, in particular, the better that relationship can be. So when you're doing things like performance reviews and the like, the more you know about that person, when you see a change, it becomes really apparent to you. So in the workplace, we're looking for, is there a major change in a person's normal way of thinking, feeling, or behaving? Are they saying things differently? Are they approaching things differently? And generally not more positive. It's probably, on that more negative side. And are these changes affecting the person's ability to carry out their usual learning, home, or social activities? So is it stopping them at work from doing the things they would normally do? Are they not connecting in with their workmates on a regular? If they always had lunch with a group of people and they're no longer having lunch with a group of people, Is their work coming in later than it used to be? Is it not the same quality that you're used to receiving? Are they interacting in meetings differently? They're all the sorts of things that if you're noticing and picking them up, and if the changes don't go away quickly. So if it's just a once off, everyone has bad days. You have a bad day, you say something and you wish you'd said it in a much better way. I don't know about anyone else. It happens to me all the time. This is more about noticing that change over at least a 2-week period. So are they not, did they used to talk about their family life all the time? Are they not doing that anymore? Did they, what did they play sport on the weekend and suddenly that stopped? It's all those sorts of things that we're looking out for.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of factors, as you say, there, Paula, and also those combination of factors happening over a period of time. So, yes, not just a once-off that we might be having a bad day or we're in a low mood because of something that's happened, or we might be just tired or whatever it might be, but something like that that continues for a longer period of time. And yeah, someone's jumped into the Q&A here also and said that they agree with you, Paula, going back to the COVID topic. With a year 11 and year 12 student, their experience of continued online learning last year resulted in them leaving university for real world interactions of work. So everything you're talking about here is relevant in the workplace, but of course it's also relevant with our young people, which is my passion in doing youth mental health first aid as well. So trying to support our youth and our young people as they work through their experiences of COVID, for example, the year 11 and 12 students or any cohorts really, is an important role we can play as well. Everything we talk about is applicable to the broader community and the broader roles that we play.
And COVID changed the way we work. So people are working from home more, and some people really like that. Some people don't like it. There's hybrid working that's going on. And those changes, if that's affecting someone, it affects their home life as well. So I think there's lots of factors in there that there was significant change, and it didn't go back. We didn't go back to pre-COVID working. We've kept moving forward, and it continues to evolve. So I think there's lots of ways that it impacts work, home, family, sporting, all factors of someone's life.
Yes, you're right. And I think as we've been talking about a lot, these kind of the prevalence of mental health issues in the workplace were happening long before COVID. And
Correct.
so COVID's not just the thing. It was happening long before COVID. We were delivering mental health first aid training at Open Door Coaching before COVID even hit. What we're talking about now is the prevalence, the continuing prevalence in our society, and how we might be able to assist with that as well. So, Paula, these conversations came up because we were talking about barriers to people seeking help for mental health issues. We're talking about in the workplace what makes things more difficult, and then the real question that we really started to explore together is it really my role? So I did have a person say, "Oh, look, I can't just walk up to someone and say, what's going on for you?" Like there was that feeling of awkwardness, that feeling of, well, I can't just confront the person. Maybe it's too confronting. Maybe I'm not the right person to be having this conversation. There was a lot of discussion in the group that I held, also in youth mental health, that was around those kind of things. We can't just walk up to a person and say, "Hey, how's it going?" Or can we? So what are your thoughts on answering some of those questions?
Sure. So, I mean, and I'm happy for people to jump in on this one too. So, barriers for people seeking mental health issues, there's a number of them. Things like stigma, people are worried that I'm going to be labelled as having a mental health issue. And in the workplace, we haven't always done a really great job of working with people with mental health illnesses. So people are a little bit scared about saying I've got a problem. Financial can be a problem, and there's lots of ways we can get around that. Or I've tried something before, it didn't work. Culturally, for some cultures, it can be a barrier. So there's lots of reasons why people might not put their hand up. And I think one of the reasons the conversation is difficult is because it can be a little bit awkward, because someone might not want to talk to you. You might not be the right person for them. And anytime you have to talk about someone's feelings, I think feeling conversations are always more difficult than if you can talk about fact and, you know, other bits and pieces. But, and the question around, is it really my role? It's if you walked past someone who'd fallen off their bike, would you stop and check to make sure that they're okay? For me, this is exactly the same thing. Mental health and first aid, mental health first aid and physical first aid for me sit in the same bucket. If you can see that someone needs some help, is it our role? Now, mental health first aid can sometimes be a little bit more difficult than just someone fell off their bike and wait for them. But sometimes you have to call an ambulance as well. So, you know, I think the thing about is it my role is if you can see another person needs some help, if you don't feel comfortable having that conversation, I think that's okay too. But perhaps it's time to find someone who might be able to have the conversation with that person, so that what you're doing is passing them on to the next person. So in an organisation, it might be a co-worker and you don't feel comfortable having that conversation, but you could talk to your manager and let them know what you've noticed, and see if they can help with that. And if you're a manager and you don't know how to have that conversation either, you have lots of resources available for you. I would highly recommend you call your HR people, because we're super amazing, and they will be able to help you think about how you put that conversation together. But you can also contact EAP. So your employee assistance programs, you can ring EAP and say, I've noticed this about my staff member. Can you tell me how do I approach this? What can I say? You can also ring Beyond Blue. They'll help you put a conversation together, because what we know is that the sooner someone actually has the conversation, the faster the road to recovery is for that person. We also know that people often wait till it gets to be a really big problem, whereas it is much better if we can have the conversation earlier so that it doesn't become a big problem. And you don't have to wait for big problems to seek help. If you can feel it, if you know there's something different, if you start that conversation early, it makes a really big difference.
Yeah, there's so many great points you offered there, Paula. And I think as we've talked about, the thing that we might start to notice is a decrease in performance, or a decrease in the person's thinking, or over time as well. So as we said, it's not just a once-off, it's over time. And I do feel like sometimes in the workplace, people might be hesitant as well, because we don't want to make this a performance management issue, a performance management conversation. So I think that's where you're suggesting having a conversation about a person's mental health sooner rather than later could make a big difference.
And it's not so they are two very separate conversations. So a performance management conversation is completely different to I'm having a conversation about someone's mental health. And if you have someone who has a mental health issue and you need to do performance management, please do not do that alone. Please see your HR people, because there's lots of legislation around discriminating against people with mental health issues. So making sure those two are kept very separate is very important.
Yeah, thank you. It's very good advice, Paula. Thank you. And I brought that up deliberately to tap into your advice there for us as well. And someone has joined the Q&A and said, I think sometimes people are relieved when someone notices they're doing it tough. It's about letting people know that if they want to talk, you are there to listen without judgment. And we thank you, that person, for your response as well. So that is it really my role is a great question. You know, we can actually think about what role do we want to play, and how can we assist the person within our abilities. So we're not trying to do something that's outside our abilities. And we have many different resources we can call upon. There's great videos on Beyond Blue. There's great videos on Lifeline, and there's also great resources we can tap into. Are you
Uh,
okay? Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
great
Yeah.
resources, cute, really
Mm,
cool little videos. And I
yeah.
think the point the other person made is, yeah, we think it will be awkward, and it probably is an awkward conversation, but they're very right that it's a human nature that when someone acknowledges and notices that something's different, that that connection that someone has to say, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" Is
Mm.
actually really important. It's sort of that basic human need that we all have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there needs to be more and more of that in the workplace, just generally. If I was thinking about things that as a team we might share with each other, and then just naturally checking in on each other. Are we okay? As we go along as a team. So it doesn't have to be, ooh, we think there's a mental health issue going on. We're doing that, as a team as we go along. It also brings up a thought for me, Paul, around that. We have to have this kind of mental health conversation. So that's where it comes to really reducing the stigma of the conversations, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the conversation doesn't have to be, I'm going to tick this box and ask these questions. It should genuinely be, I'm interested in you and concerned, and I'm asking you some questions so that we can see how everything's going. So it
Mm.
doesn't have to be like a performance review conversation where you have to fill in all the boxes and tick it all off, and it's a very formal, please sit down and have this conversation with me. It can happen over the water cooler. I don't know that we even have water coolers anymore, but it's a water cooler conversation. It could be a coffee conversation. It could be in a one-on-one conversation. It's that check-in that just says, "Hey, how you doing? Is everything all right?"
Yes, absolutely. And there's a few things that you mentioned there too, in terms of picking the right space for the conversation, ensuring confidentiality, and also, as you said, separating out a performance conversation versus a mental health conversation as well. So lots of different things we're thinking about there. The one thing that comes to me is that there's no one perfect way to have the conversation. I did love this little post-it note that says if plan A didn't work, then the alphabet has 25 more letters. So, we can choose plan A, B, C, etc. And there's no one perfect way to have the conversation. But Paula, in your training and the work that you've done, you did have some perhaps principles that you'd like to share with us around what that conversation might, how you might start that mental health first aid a conversation around mental health in the workplace. Do you want to
I think,
share some of your ideas there?
yeah, it is as simple as saying, "Are you okay?" Or whatever words you would use. How are you doing at the moment? You'll know which words feel the most comfortable for you, but it's just about seeking. You're sort of checking in with that person. It's really important to listen with an open mind. You often hear things that you didn't expect. I had one recently where I thought, man, of all the things you could have said to me, that wasn't the thing I was expecting. And that's okay, so long as what you're doing then is making sure that there's no judgment on what's being said. So I'm hearing what you're saying, and I said to this person, I didn't actually imagine that's what you were going to say, but let's talk about that a little bit more. Tell me a bit more about what's happening for you. And explain why you're concerned. So, I've noticed there's been a change in you. I've noticed that you're not doing things. And it's important to say the I, not the we, because if you say we've noticed, then all of a sudden there's a collective of who are these people and why am I being judged for this? So, keeping it with that, I've noticed, that you're not doing this or that you're doing more of this or whatever it is. And be prepared to wait and be comfortable with silence. Sometimes this can be the first time someone's ever asked that person the question. And then they have to have a think about how they want to answer the question. So I think the space is a gift that you give the person that you're listening to um, gather their thoughts, to think about what it does actually mean for them and to be able to talk. And then, as a very good coaches that we are, it's about not giving advice, but exploring options. So, what could we do about this? Where could you get some help for this? As opposed to, well, you should just do this and do that. And, great coaches ask great exploring questions. And it's about being a really great emotional support for them. Even if now's not the right time for them, okay, well, I will be here at any point if you need to come and talk to me, so that they know that there's someone out there supporting them.
Yeah, and I think about the question we asked Paula around, what's my role as a leader, as a manager, and as a coach? And I think that these these pieces of information you've shared with us around how to start a conversation applies regardless of our role. Actually, from a coach's point of view, we might have to think ethically. Well, we're not coaching; we're actually maybe stepping into a different space. But regardless of that, everything that you've suggested really plays out. If I am in a coaching scenario, I'll be listening with an open mind. I'll be, suggesting to a person that I've noticed some changes. So we might be so-called taking our coaching hat off, or we might be doing less coaching, but we are prepared to wait in comfortable silence. We're not giving advice. So these clues that you've given us apply across our roles.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's when you think about the beauty of a coaching conversation, it is about the other person. So this is no different. This is about the other person. This is about understanding where they are at this point in time. It's about understanding what's impacting them, and then looking at how do we move forward? What do you need to do? And in this sort of a space, we're helping them guide to seeking professional help, because we're not mental health professionals in this. But well, I said I'm not a mental health professional. That those are the next sort of steps. But it is about encouraging them to take the action to go and talk to someone who is in that profession, who can provide them with better support and guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. Encouraging the action, encouraging them to get support, whether it's through those resources we've shared already, Lifeline, Are You OK, Beyond Blue here in Australia, or as you said, going to seek support through HR, the Employee Assistance Program, or other forms of professional help. So really, we have a great role to play here in terms of checking in on a person, asking different questions just to show them that we've noticed something, or to share with them that we are concerned, as you've said, and then to gently nudge. We're not making them go and get that support, but I love that word, encouraging support, encouraging them to do something about it, simply because, as we know, the earlier a person does seek support, the earlier they can help get back onto their health journey.
Yeah, and GPs are also a very good source. So encouraging someone, if you don't want to go see a psychologist, if you don't want to, other options, how about you start with your GP, because they've got great resources available to them.
Yes, and the ability to put a mental health first aid, a mental health plan, a mental health first aid plan in place, a mental health action plan in place, that allows people to access professional support as well, under the different schemes that we have here in Australia.
Correct.
So checking in, of course, as we go along. And we're thinking, Paula, we're right on time now, and it's a timely reminder, I think, also to look after ourselves as well. So as we are going through the journey, we may be noticing and be able to assist others, but important that we look after ourselves as we go along. So just trying to re-emphasize that if you or someone do need support, you can contact those organisations that we've said. Paula, do you have some closing remarks on our topic? Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your training in this area as well. And thank you for allowing us to open up the conversations. I think as leaders, as coaches, and as managers, we need to keep this conversation alive for the people around us. Do you have other closing comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, I think that looking after yourself is super important. And thinking about your own mindfulness, and if you're having mental health conversations, that you get someone to debrief with as well, because you hear things, you have conversations, etc. So your own mindfulness is important. And I guess my final remark is that that the more we can normalize the conversation in the workplace, in the home, in the community, in sporting, in everything that we do, the easier these conversations become, the more likelihood people are that they get help and support, and that we keep moving forward. So normalizing the conversation is really the key here.
Thank you. Yes, reducing that stigma. Well, thank you. If you'd like to join in with mental health first aid training and get the skills and knowledge you need to have mental health conversations in the workplace, Paula is running the training, so you can connect with us around that. Connect with us around our Leader as Coach programs, our Certificate for in Workplace and Business Coaching programs, and of course our Diploma of Workplace and Business Coaching. And there's a lot of great coaches on the line. You would have heard our announcement around our Level 1 accredited coach training, where you can take the training and the knowledge and the coaching programs of Open Door, the ones that you know and love. You can now start delivering them to your clients and within your organization. So lots going on here at Open Door that you can talk to us about and share in the coaching experience. Paul, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate your insights. And as I said, if you or anyone else you know does need assistance, please reach out.